Mötley Crüe kicked off their current Las Vegas residency this past weekend, which will be running for the next couple of weeks. And naturally, the band did some press around the residency kicking off. Both Vince Neil and Nikki Sixx have done interviews where they both found opportunities to express their disdain for the band's former guitarist, Mick Mars, who has now been out of the band for just about 3 years now. As a very quick refresher of what went down, since it's been a few years now, there were a lot of rumors following the conclusion of the stadium tour in 2022 that Mick Mars was going to retire and that John 5 would be replacing him. And indeed, Mick's retirement was announced in October that year via a statement from his representative to Variety, which is on the screen now. And it's important to note that in that statement, it says, quote, Mick will continue as a member of the band, but can no longer handle the rigors of the road. So exactly as it sounds, retiring from touring only, still a member of Mötley Crüe, according to that initial statement to Variety. Now that statement to Variety was published on October 26th, and then the very next day, on the 27th, Mötley released a statement of their own, essentially corroborating what we already knew and confirming the rumors that John 5 was joining in Mick's place. However, one important thing to note about Mötley's statement at that time, while the one from Mick's rep to Variety said that he would still be a member of the band, he was only going to be retiring from the road, Mötley's statement says, quote, we accept Mick's decision to retire from the band. It does not say retire from touring, it says retire from the band. Is it just different wording with the same meaning as the statement to Variety, or did Mötley mean Mick was out of the band altogether? I think that could very easily be up for debate, as about 6 months after Mick was out, he sued the band and claimed a number of things, among them that he was essentially forced out of the band, that the remaining members were attempting to cut his ownership stake from 25% down to just 5%. And Mick also accused Nikki Sixx of gaslighting him about his guitar playing being rather lackluster, his skills were diminishing, things like that. And he also claimed that Nikki's bass parts were completely pre-recorded for the stadium tour. Nikki did not play a single note, according to Mick Mars. And he also alleged that some of Vince's vocals and Tommy's drums were not live, that at least some of it was pre-recorded, which, you know, I obviously cannot say for sure, but I will say, given some of the video that's gone around from that tour, and I was at a couple of those shows myself, that does seem like a fair thing to at least allege. But this has all been going on for about 2.5 years now. Last year, a judge in LA ruled that the band had failed to provide certain documents to Mick within a timely manner, so they were ordered to pay his legal fees. But now the dispute is in private arbitration. It's still ongoing. But according to the LA Times, the arbitrator did rule in favor of the band and against Mick Mars in the first phase of arbitration, which brings us to now. And speaking of the LA Times, Nikki Sixx just did an interview with them where he brought up the situation with Mick. And FYI, Nikki really wants you to check out this interview and be ashamed of Mick Mars as he is, because here is what Nikki posted on his X account over the weekend. Read this LA Times article and find out how Mick Mars lied to you to try and hurt the band. Why would he betray you and us? Money? Wow. Read it and find out what happened to him and his dirty lawyers in arbitration. I'm actually ashamed of him. So should you be too. More to be revealed soon. Now let's get into this LA Times article, because in it, Nikki discusses the situation between the band and Mick, and he gives his and the band's side of what went down. Here's what he said. Mick came to us and said, health-wise, he couldn't fulfill his contract, and we let him out of the deal. Then he sued us because he just said that he can't tour. We were like, well, if you can't tour, you can't tour. I will probably come to that too someday. Mick's allegations of the band using tracks are then addressed, with Nikki noting that Mötley has been using audio enhancements since 1985, which, to his credit, Nikki has been very open about that type of thing in the past. And then he specifically points in this LA Times article to the song Wild Side as a quote-unquote perfect example because of its sequenced guitar parts, before he then adds, anything we enhanced the shows with, we actually played. If there are background vocals with my background vocals, and we have background singers to make it sound more like the record, that does not mean we're not singing. I understand to some extent what he's saying. I think he's saying that basically, yes, there are tracks, but everybody is playing on top of the tracks. They're not just going on stage and miming, is what I think he's getting at. But saying anything we enhanced the shows with, we actually played, past tense, I think that could be taken as, yes, You did play what's being heard on a track at some point, but maybe you're not playing it as I'm watching you on stage. I think it could be taken that way, but it doesn't matter because even the band's lawyer is quoted in this LA Times article really hammering the point home that Mötley does in fact play live. Here's what their attorney said. The fact of the matter is that Mötley always plays live. Even Mars's expert witness in the litigation, who Mars hired and who reviewed hours of footage, agreed and said that the band played live while performing. He disputed Mars's own claims. Nikki then wraps up the topic of Mick Mars by referring to his accusations as a quote-unquote crazy betrayal to his legacy and fans of the band. Here's what Nikki said. Saying he played in a band that didn't play, it's a betrayal to the band who saved his life. People say things like, well, if you guys are really playing, then I need isolated tracks from band rehearsal. It's ludicrous. Now, before we move on to what Vince recently said about Mick, a lot of people on social media have been bringing up the tattoo of Mick Mars that Nikki famously got on his thigh on the show LA Inc. back when he was dating Kat Von D. I've wondered this myself. Does he regret it? How does he feel about it now, given all of the drama between the two camps? And recently, a fan asked him that on social media. Nikki posted this selfie online, and he told fans to leave snarky comments only. And one fan asked him if he regrets getting that tattoo, to which he responded, I was his biggest fan, saved his life, and then he betrayed us and the fans. So yes, it's not easy to see. And I believe all of this talk of saving Mick's life is referring to Mick's health issues, his battle with ankylosing spondylitis. Obviously, Mick is unfortunately not in the greatest shape. It's been that way for quite some time. There's a documentary, I'll try to find a link of it and put it down below. Right before they reunited around the mid-2000s when they put out the Red, White, and Crüe compilation and did the, I think that was the Carnival of Sins tour and all that, Mick was talking in that documentary. He was not in good shape. He needed a hip replacement. I think that was around the same time. So I believe that's what all of this talk about saving his life is referring to. But either way, very clearly, a lot of animosity here between Nikki Sixx and Mick Mars. And Vince also apparently feels the same way as Nikki does, because he recently did an interview with the Las Vegas Review-Journal where he revealed that he suffered a stroke, if you saw the news, just after Christmas last year, 2024, which is why the current Las Vegas residency was postponed to now. It was originally supposed to take place this past spring. But within that interview, Vince was asked about Mick's claims that the band uses backing tracks during their shows. Here's what Vince Neil had to say. No, we never did that, ever. It was Mick Mars who got pissed off because we fired him, basically. But his whole thing was that I don't sing any of the lyrics, Nikki doesn't play his bass, and Tommy doesn't play his drums. And we're like, what the fuck is he talking about? Because he was the only one on tape, because he kept fucking stuff up, so we had him on tape. When he started going off on some weird tangent, our sound guy just turned him off and turned the tape on. The only thing about that was that it was all in Mick Mars's head. A little bit different than what Nikki said, where at least Nikki admits that Mötley does use some audio quote-unquote enhancements, as he puts it. Vince is saying Mick is the only one that used anything on tape, but it doesn't matter because the sentiment is still the same. At least those two are totally anti-Mick Mars. From what I recall, Tommy hasn't really said anything, nothing too much about any of this, at least recently, and I highly doubt that John 5 would ever say anything one way or the other. Mick has also not responded to any of this. The LA Times say that they reached out to him with a request for comment, but he declined. He is apparently working on his second solo album, though, which I'm very excited for. I thought the first one was really good. And as mentioned at the top of the video, Mötley is in the midst of their current Las Vegas residency, which runs until October 3rd. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Are you Team Mötley? Are you Team Mick? Let me know down below in the comments. But that is all that I got for you for right now. Thank you so much for hanging out. Feel free to drop a like, subscribe below if you feel like it, and I'll see you next time.